I'm here on Capitol Hill with resident Commissioner Pedro Pierluisi. Why do you say the fight for statehood is so important right now?
It is so important because you're talking about having full democracy in Puerto Rico, respecting the right of self-determination in Puerto Rico. America is the most democratic nation in the world. It cannot ignore the will of the people of Puerto Rico. And 1 year ago, the people of Puerto Rico asked for a change of status and chose statehood as the best option for our future. We've had a status that is colonial in nature now for 520 years. First for about 4 centuries under Spain, and since then under the American flag. It's enough.
People gathering here on Capitol Hill are saying this is not a Democratic issue or a Republican issue. They say it's an American issue. Why?
It is because actually, take for example the statehood party in Puerto Rico. You have, which I preside over it. You have people very liberal from all spectrum, from the whole spectrum of American politics, from the very liberal ones, very conservative ones, and in between everybody else. Because this has nothing to do with government ideology. It has to do with principles. You should be able to elect the national leaders who make the laws that benefit or affect you. And you should be able to have equal treatment in federal tax programs of your nation. Puerto Ricans serve in uniform like anybody else here in the States. In fact, more so than the rest of the states. And it's about time that we join the American family on an equal basis.
How realistic is this fight right now here in Capitol Hill? There's a lot that would have to happen to make this go to the House floor for a vote.
Actually, I feel very positive about this. It's not going to happen overnight. But for example, yesterday, Harry Reid, the Democratic leader, he said, when asked, do you support statehood? He said, I do, and I have always supported statehood for Puerto Rico. At the same time, you have a Tea Party member like Raúl Labrador supporting statehood, supporting this bill, which allows the people of Puerto Rico, my bill, allows the people of Puerto Rico to ratify that they want Puerto Rico to be admitted as a state, and then lays out the process for Puerto Rico to become a state. You have Republicans like Darrell Issa co-sponsoring the bill, Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, and you have Democrats like Steny Hoyer, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So that shows you that this has nothing to do with partisan politics.
You've said that part of the problems in Puerto Rico stem from the fact that it's not a state yet. What do you mean by that?
I mean that first of all, territorial status is not permanent in nature. It's unstable. There is political risk when you're a territory because you could become either a state or an independent or sovereign nation. And that it's not good for investment purposes. On top of it, Puerto Rico has been compensating for lack of equal federal funding in many areas, including health. And so it has indebted itself too much. On top of it, we're losing population because of lack of quality of life in Puerto Rico. We do not have the same federal programs. Again, the presence of the federal agencies in Puerto Rico is not the same as elsewhere. And Puerto Ricans are leaving the island, the best and the brightest. We need to put a stop to that. It is not in the interest of the U.S. to have a deteriorating American territory in the Caribbean. It is much better for the U.S. to have a robust state in the Caribbean.
People who are fighting for statehood say they won't retire on this issue. So what is your message to some of the legislators in Puerto Rico, perhaps like the governor, who don't necessarily believe that statehood is the way to go?
Well, you'll never have unanimity here. You'll always have people opposing statehood. It happened in Hawaii, it happened in Alaska. The ones who support the status quo have their own reasons, but it is, again, it is not democratic. You just have to spend a day with me in Congress to realize it. Congress just shut down. There are 10,000 federal employees in Puerto Rico, and I couldn't vote for or against that. It makes no sense. I mean, we should be either a state or a sovereign nation. I support statehood because we've been American citizens now for close to 100 years. We're proud Americans and proud Puerto Ricans, and it makes no sense to separate from the U.S. We want to make it permanent.